All right, we are going to be looking at capitalization rules today. So in the next two available pages in your composition notebook, let's put capitalization rules as the titles on the next two pages. Capitalization rules, and then the same thing on this page. Okay, so you're going to need the chart that looks like this. It says hard and fast rules for capitalization and has 6 rules. And then you're also going to need the chart that has a bunch of different sentences as examples in there. The first one talks about the Golden Gate Bridge. This is going to be glued onto the second page right here. And then the rules chart is going to be glued onto this page right here. So go ahead and cut out and glue yours into your composition notebook, and then pause this video to do that, and then press play again when you're ready. All right, so what I did was I actually cut off the bottom part. I'm going to show you some rules for a second, but the bottom part right underneath the rule number 6 was just an empty box. We won't need that, so you can actually cut right underneath rule number 6. That way it'll fit on your page also. Okay, so let's start. So I'm just going to have you copy down examples, which are going to fill these 2 sections in each row. So we're going to ignore this column right here. So the first rule is do capitalize the first letter of a proper noun, a name for a person, place, thing, or event. So every time you have a person's name, you need to capitalize it. So go ahead and copy down these examples here. Every time you have a place, that's a specific place, a proper noun, you need to capitalize it. Every time you have a proper noun for a thing, like a brand name of something, you need to capitalize it. This would be a place or a thing, depending on how you're thinking about it. We need to capitalize even the in front of it because it's part of the title. And then events, World War II. We need to capitalize them because they're a specific event that took place. Go ahead and pause this if you need to in order to finish this row. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the next one. So rule number 2 is do capitalize all significant words in titles of books, magazines, stories, movies, and other media. Always capitalize the first and last word. So we kind of worked with this a little bit as you guys were coming up with titles for your small moment narratives, and I kind of helped you look through your titles and said, all right, you need to capitalize this word, and this word, but not these words in the middle. That's because those weren't significant words. You'll notice down here, it tells you what words are not significant words. You do not capitalize articles, which we've talked about, a, and the. Prepositions we haven't looked at yet, but those are things that describe your relation to something. So as, at, of, on, for, in, there's tons of other prepositions that exist. Or conjunctions, so your fanboys or your awubis, if they are 4 letters or fewer and not the first or the last word of your title, they are not capitalized. So you'll notice here of and in and a, if either of these 3 words, just like here, it's a is not capitalized here, but it is here because it's either the first or the last word of the title. It needs to be capitalized. But otherwise, all of those minor words that are 4 letters or fewer, not pronouns. Pronouns often get confused for these little words like my, we, us. Those always need to be capitalized. So you need to capitalize all significant words and titles. Think of all nouns, pronouns, verbs, proper nouns, that kind of a thing. So go ahead and copy these. Pause this if you need to. Otherwise, we will move on to rule number 3. Rule number 3 says do capitalize the first letter of a sentence, which we should all know that by now, and even in a quotation. So some of you, when you were adding quotes into your small moment narratives, we worked on making sure that those were capitalized right away. Okay, so my mother said, comma, quotations, your father will be home shortly. So I have the first letter of the sentence capitalized, and I have the first letter of the quotation capitalized. Go ahead and pause this if you need to. And rule number 4 says you do capitalize names of relatives that indicate family relationship when used with the person's name or alone as the name you call that person. This is kind of tricky. Think about like aunt, mother, father, grandma. dad, mom, all of those relation or relative words. If they are used in front of the name, Aunt Karen, Grandma Jean, Father Joe, depending on how you would call these relatives, they need to be capitalized. So that relation word needs to be capitalized. Now, if you are just putting that relation word by itself without a name attached, it kind of depends. If you say, my aunt and uncle went to the store, think about this. If you can replace that relation word with a person's name and the sentence makes sense, it needs to be capitalized. So please ask Becca to answer her phone. I can replace Becca, or even if this was please ask Uncle to answer his phone. Well, I wouldn't say if I can replace it with someone's name, Uncle, Grandma would need to be capitalized. But if I just said my aunt and uncle went to the store, I wouldn't say my Joe and Sarah went to the store. That wouldn't make sense. So if you can replace it with someone's name, if it's by itself, or if it's paired up with the name, it needs to be capitalized. This is someone's name. Okay, so that's why this one's capitalized. It's also the first word of the sentence, so that doesn't help. But if you can replace it with someone's name, Tom gets home early on Fridays, it would be capitalized. Go ahead and pause this if you need to finish these examples. Otherwise, we will move on to rule number 5. Rule number 5, kind of a long one here. This one's talking about names of, or a title of someone. So governor, doctor, president, vice president, all of those different titles. There's tons and tons of them out there. I just use the same one throughout a few of the examples so you can kind of see the difference of when you capitalize them and when you don't capitalize them. If the title precedes their name, so it's right before their name, Governor Evers, President Biden, you would need to capitalize the title and their name. If you are using it in direct address, like it's saying down here, when you're directly addressing, like you're talking to them personally, you would need to capitalize it. Thank you for your response, Governor. You could also replace this with a name. Thank you for your response, Tom, or whatever the name is. You could replace it with a name and it would still make sense. In that case, you would capitalize it. But now if I'm just saying the governor won the election, I can't replace this with a name and have it make sense. The Tom won the election. Well, that doesn't make sense. So the governor, in this case, would not be capitalized because it's just a title by itself. Okay, this is just a different title, but it's also another direct address one. Do I need to come in today, doctor? I'm directly addressing this title of a person. If that's the case, you need to capitalize it. Pause this to finish up this section's examples, and then we'll move on to the last one. So the last one, do capitalize countries, nationalities, and languages. We've worked with this before. Proper nouns and proper adjectives. England, English, American, Spain, Spanish. There's tons and tons and tons of different examples for this. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out quickly. Go ahead and pause this if you need to in order to finish any of these examples. And then we're going to move on to the example page on the next page. So go ahead and pause this. Okay, now I did the first one for you. We're just going to use our grammar rules marks to either lowercase or capitalize words that need to be. This one says, on the way to visit my aunt in California, we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't need to capitalize aunt because I can't replace that with a name of someone. On the way to visit my Lori in California, we would just say Lori in California. If mine wasn't in there, aunt would be capitalized. But because mine's in there, we don't capitalize aunt. California is a proper noun, a place, and then the Golden Gate Bridge is a proper noun, a place, or a thing. So the needs to be capitalized in the title, Golden Gate and Bridge need to be capitalized. All right, next one. From the back seat, I heard Dad shout, wake up, kids, and take in this view. Two things we need to capitalize in here. Dad, because it is the name of someone. We could replace that with someone's actual name, and it would make sense. So dad needs to be capitalized, and wake needs to be capitalized. Next one. Grandma Florence, whose other son is a senator, started talking way too fast in French. Relative title, and if her name is right next to it, you need to capitalize the name and the title. Whose other son is a senator. We don't need to capitalize this because it's not talking about a specific one. and it's not talking directly to that senator. It's just saying a senator. So we can lowercase that one. And then French, we're going to keep capitalized or capitalize it because that is a proper adjective. All right, next one. Then I realized that this was the same bridge from the theme song to the television show Full House. Well, this is the title of a TV show, so we're going to capitalize full and house. Theme and song do not need to be capitalized because they're just a generic thing. They're not a proper noun. Last two, my brother never looked up from the book he was reading, The Hunger Games. Now, some kids might think brother needs to be capitalized, but it doesn't. I wouldn't say my Brett never looked up. If my wasn't there, brother would be capitalized, but it's not. The is the only word that needs to be capitalized here because it's part of the title of the book. And then number 6, my mother said, beginning of the sentence and the beginning of the quote is not capitalized. And then she hugged Dad. Dad needs to be capitalized. And does not need to be capitalized because it is still part of this sentence here, even though that exclamation point is there. We're going to get into quotation rules a little bit further on in this unit, so that will make sense a little bit later on. But go ahead and finish these up if you need to. I'll try to zoom in. I know the marks are small. Then your homework for today is this sheet, capitalization worksheet. You're going through the entire mini story that's here and just putting your 3 little lines underneath the words that need to be capitalized. There are not any lowercase mistakes. Everything just needs to be capitalized. That is a mistake. There are 19 capitalization errors in all. So if you see one, just put your 3 little lines underneath the letter of the word that needs to be capitalized. All right, thank you.